The art of letting go. How to live lighter and find true peace. What if I told you that the things weighing you down the most aren't the struggles life throws at you, but the burdens you choose to carry? The fear of judgment, the need for approval, the endless battles of being right, fixing others, chasing perfection, clinging to possessions, and dreading the future. These invisible chains keep us trapped, not because we have to hold on, but because we're afraid to let go. But what if you could release them? What if you could walk lighter, breathe easier, and finally live with peace? This isn't about giving up, it's about setting yourself free. And today, I'm going to show you how. At the end of the day, life isn't about how much you've proven, how much you've earned, or how much you own. It's about how freely you can live. Letting go doesn't mean losing. It means making space for joy, for presence, for the things that truly matter. So tell me, which burden have you been carrying for too long? If this video resonated with you, comment 1. If not, comment 0, so I know how to make it better for you. And if you're ready to take this journey with me, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because this is just the beginning of living lighter and loving deeper. See you in the next one. 1. Stop overthinking about what others think of you. I remember when I was younger, there was always some story in the papers about a scandal, some politician caught in a lie, a celebrity shamed for their choices, a neighbor whispered about behind closed doors. People loved to judge, to dissect every detail of someone else's life. And for a long time, I let that same fear control me. I'd walk into a room and wonder, are they staring at my shirt? Did I say something foolish? Do they think I'm successful enough? I spent too many years of my life being weighed down by the invisible chains of other people's opinions. And let me tell you, they were the heaviest burden of all. Funny thing is, most of the time, people aren't even thinking about you. They're too busy worrying about their own lives, their own insecurities. But we don't realize that when we're young, we obsess over every glance, every offhand comment, every moment of silence after we speak, convinced that the world is measuring us, judging us. And yet, as the years pass, you come to see the truth. People's opinions are like the wind, changing direction with every passing moment, never settling long enough to matter. I learned this lesson the hard way. I once held back from doing things I loved just because I was afraid of what others might think. I avoided dancing at weddings because I worried I'd look silly. I kept my thoughts to myself in conversations where I had something valuable to say. I even hesitated to wear the clothes I liked because I thought they weren't in style anymore. What a waste of time that was. The day I stopped caring was the day I started living. You know, when you let go of that fear, something incredible happens. You stop second-guessing yourself. You start doing things because they make you happy, not because they fit some imagined mold of what's acceptable. You laugh louder, you wear what makes you feel good, you speak your truth without constantly editing yourself. And the best part? The people who truly matter will love you for it. And those who don't, they never really mattered anyway. It's not easy to shake off years of conditioning, I know that. The world teaches us from a young age to seek approval. But every time you catch yourself worrying about what someone else thinks, ask yourself, will this matter in a year? Most of the time, the answer is no. And if it won't matter in a year, it certainly isn't worth sacrificing your happiness for today. So go ahead, order that dessert without wondering if someone will judge you for indulging. Share your thoughts in a conversation without worrying if they'll be well received. Dance, even if you have 2 left feet. Sing, even if your voice cracks. Walk into a room with confidence, knowing that the only opinion that truly matters is the one you have of yourself. The sooner you stop letting the world dictate your worth, the sooner you'll find real peace. And trust me, Peace is worth more than any fleeting approval ever could be. When you stop worrying about what others think of you, another question arises. Do I still need to please everyone? If I stop living according to their expectations, will I still be accepted? This is one of the biggest psychological traps we fall into, living to please others instead of living for ourselves. 2. Stop trying to please everyone. I spent years of my life trying to be the person everyone wanted me to be. When I was younger, at work, I always said yes. Yes to overtime. Yes to extra projects. Yes to staying late when I was already exhausted. I told myself I was being responsible, that I was proving my worth. But deep down, I was just afraid of disappointing others, afraid of being seen as selfish, afraid of saying no. And it wasn't just at work. With friends, with family, with neighbors, I made myself available for everyone. If someone needed help moving, I was there. If they needed a favor, I dropped everything. If they wanted my time, I gave it. At the moment, it felt good to be needed, to be liked. But over time, I realized something. I was exhausted. I had spent so much energy making sure everyone else was happy that I had forgotten to ask myself, am I happy? Old habits are hard to break. Even after I retired, I found myself still agreeing to things out of obligation. A neighbor needed help fixing something? I said yes. A friend wanted me to join a club I had no interest in? I said yes. A distant relative wanted advice on a problem that would drain my time and energy? Yes again. It took me years to finally understand that saying no is not selfish, it is necessary. One day, I watched an old friend, a retired teacher, handle a situation that changed my perspective. She used to be just like me, always putting others first, always making time for everyone but herself. But when she retired, something changed. She started saying no. No to obligations that drained her. No to activities she didn't truly enjoy. She spent her time gardening, reading, and doing what made her happy. And you know what? People still loved her. The world didn't fall apart because she set boundaries. In fact, she seemed freer, lighter, at peace. That was when I realized, you don't have to be everything to everyone. The people who truly care about you will respect your time, your choices, and your happiness. And those who don't, well, maybe they were never really your people to begin with. So if you find yourself always saying yes out of guilt, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, do I really want to do this, or am I just afraid to say no? You have spent your whole life giving. Now, it's time to give yourself permission to put your own happiness first. Do you relate to this? Comment 1 if you've struggled with this, or 0 if you've already learned to say no. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Once you stop trying to please everyone, you'll notice something interesting. Not everyone will be happy about it. Some people will disapprove, others will challenge your choices, and sometimes you'll find yourself caught in unnecessary arguments. But this is when you need to ask yourself, is it really worth wasting my energy on endless debates? 3. Stop wasting energy on arguments and drama. I used to live next door to a man who loved to argue. It didn't matter if it was politics, the weather, or whether the local store was charging too much for eggs. He always had an opinion, and he always wanted to debate. At first, I engaged, thinking I could reason with him, that maybe if I just explained things clearly, he'd see my point of view. But you know what I realized? Some people aren't looking for understanding. They just want the fight. In our younger years, we may have felt the need to prove ourselves in debates, defend our opinions, or fight to be right. But as we age, we come to understand that most arguments are pointless. People believe what they want to believe, and no amount of reasoning will change their minds if they are not open to it. I remember a time when a small disagreement with a neighbor turned into days of tension. It started with something trivial, whether or not a tree in my yard was dropping leaves onto his driveway. He insisted I should cut it down, and I argued that it was just nature doing its thing. Days passed, and the air between us grew colder. Looking back, I wonder, was it really worth it? Was the peace of my home worth sacrificing just to win a point? Instead of getting caught up in unnecessary battles, I learned to say, okay, if that's what you believe. Walk away from situations that disrupt your peace. Silence is often the most powerful response. Not every disagreement needs a resolution. Not every conflict needs a victor. Sometimes, the best way to win is simply to refuse to play the game. I've found that the more I let go of arguments, the lighter my life becomes. I no longer feel the urge to correct someone at a dinner table when they misstate a fact. I no longer get worked up when a neighbor insists that his way is the only way. I smile, nod, and go about my day. And you know what? I sleep better at night. Because peace isn't found in proving yourself right, it's found in knowing that you don't need to. Think about the last time you argued with someone. Maybe it was about politics with a friend, or maybe it was over something as small as which way the toilet paper roll should face. Did the argument really change anything? Or did it just make you both frustrated? The truth is, most conflicts in life are not about facts or logic, they're about emotions. And when we argue, we often feed into those emotions, making the situation worse rather than better. Now, that doesn't mean we should never speak up or that we should suppress our thoughts. It just means we should choose our battles wisely. Some conversations are worth having, but many, perhaps most, are not. And learning to tell the difference is one of the greatest skills we can develop as we grow older. Here's what I do now. When I feel the urge to argue, I pause and ask myself, will this matter in a year? If the answer is no, I let it go. If the answer is yes, I approach the conversation with patience, not aggression. I listen more than I speak. I try to understand rather than convince. And if I sense that the discussion is leading nowhere, I simply smile and move on. Letting go of the need to be right all the time is liberating. It allows us to focus on the things that truly matter: our health, our happiness, our relationships. Because at the end of the day, no one looks back on their life and thinks, I'm so glad I won all those arguments. They think about the love they shared, the laughter they had, the moments of peace they experienced. And that is what truly makes a life well lived. But it's not just arguments that drain us. Another exhausting habit is trying to fix everyone else's problems. We don't just want to be heard, we want to help, to intervene, to solve things for others. But does this truly help them, or does it only leave us both feeling drained? 4. Stop trying to solve everyone's problems. I used to believe that as a father, it was my job to protect my children from every hardship, every mistake, every wrong turn. I would offer advice before they even asked for it, step in when I sensed trouble, and try to solve problems before they became real issues. It felt like love, it felt like responsibility, but over time, I realized something. Sometimes, love means stepping back. I remember when my son decided to quit his well-paying job to pursue something entirely different. I could see the risks from a mile away. I had lived long enough to know that stability was not something to be thrown away lightly. So I told him all the reasons why he should reconsider. I laid out the dangers, the financial instability, the uncertainty. I thought I was helping. But what I was really doing was robbing him of the chance to figure it out for himself. It didn't stop there. When my daughter got married, I saw things she couldn't. I noticed the small arguments, the way she sometimes seemed tired, the moments where I thought, maybe she's making a mistake. And again, I wanted to step in. I wanted to warn her, to tell her what I saw, to make sure she avoided pain. But then I remembered how my own parents had worried about my choices, how they had tried to guide me away from mistakes that, in the end, became the most important lessons of my life. And I held back. That was not an easy thing to do. It goes against every instinct as a parent. But here's the truth. You cannot walk someone else's path for them. You cannot live their life, make their choices, or bear their consequences. And trying to do so will only leave you exhausted and them resentful. When we interfere too much, we send an unspoken message. I don't trust you to handle this. And trust is one of the greatest gifts we can give the people we love. Instead of fixing, I have learned to listen. Instead of advising, I ask, what do you think you should do? Instead of controlling, I remind myself that my job is not to prevent every mistake, but to be there when they need someone to lean on after they've learned from it. It's not easy to let go, but it's necessary, not just for them, but for you. Because carrying the weight of everyone else's problems will only drain you. And at this stage of life, you deserve peace just as much as they deserve the right to grow. Even when you stop worrying on behalf of others, there's still another heavy burden: regret. We always think we could have done better, made different choices, or lived a more perfect life. But do you really need perfection? 5. Stop chasing perfection and let go of regret. Have no fear of perfection, you'll never reach it. Those were the words of Salvador Dali, and the older I get, the more I realize how right he was. For so much of life, we chase an impossible standard, thinking that if we could just get everything right, then we would finally be happy. But perfection is a moving target, it always shifts just out of reach. And the more you chase it, the more exhausted you become. I used to believe that if I worked hard enough, planned carefully enough, and made all the right choices, I could create a perfect life. A perfect family, a perfect career, and for years, I measured my worth by how close I could get to that ideal. But life has a way of humbling you. No matter how much effort you put in, mistakes happen. Unexpected events change your course. And eventually, you have to make a choice. Either keep chasing an illusion or learn to embrace reality. Regret is the shadow that follows perfectionism. When you believe life should have gone a certain way, you look back and see only the ways it fell short. I used to replay old decisions in my mind, wondering what might have happened if I had chosen differently. If I had been more patient in my marriage, if I had taken that job offer in another city, if I had spent more time with my kids when they were younger. It's an endless loop, and the worst part? It changes nothing. At some point, I had to ask myself, what am I really achieving by holding on to regret? The past is unchangeable, but the present is still in my hands. Every moment spent dwelling on what's gone is a moment stolen from what's still here. I see this struggle in so many people. A friend of mine spent years regretting not pursuing his dream of becoming a musician. Every time we talked, he would say, if only I had taken that risk when I was younger. But you know what? One day, he stopped saying, if only, and started asking, why not now? He picked up his guitar again, started playing at small events, and found a joy he thought was lost forever. He didn't need to rewrite his past, he just needed to stop letting regret control his future. There's a freedom that comes with accepting life as it is instead of how you think it should have been. When you stop chasing perfection, you start noticing beauty in the imperfections. The wrinkles on your face tell a story of laughter and survival. The missteps in your career led you to unexpected opportunities. The moments that didn't go as planned still shaped you into the person you are today. So if you find yourself dwelling on what could have been, take a breath. Look around. Life is still happening right now, and it doesn't care about your regrets. It only asks one thing of you, to live it. What about you? Have you faced this challenge? Type 1 if this speaks to you, or 0 if you've already learned this lesson. Your thoughts matter, and once you free yourself from the burdens of the mind, you'll start to notice another truth. We also hold on to too much in our physical lives. Items that have lost their value, things we hoard out of fear of losing them. But do they truly serve us anymore? 6. Stop accumulating unnecessary possessions. I grew up in a time when nothing was wasted. Every piece of fabric, every empty jar, every broken chair had a second life. We didn't throw things away because we didn't know when, or if, we'd be able to replace them. I remember my mother carefully folding old clothes, patching up worn-out shoes, and storing away everything that might be useful someday. That habit stayed with me for years, and I know I'm not alone. For those of us who lived through tough times, accumulating possessions wasn't about greed, it was about survival. Having extra blankets meant warmth in the winter. Storing food meant security. Holding onto old furniture, broken radios, and empty containers meant we had something to fall back on if times got hard again. And back then, that made sense. But the world has changed. Most of us don't need to save every little thing anymore. And yet, we still do. We hold onto clothes we haven't worn in years, boxes of trinkets we've long forgotten, kitchen gadgets collecting dust. We tell ourselves it might come in handy, that it would be wasteful to get rid of it. But the truth is, these things don't bring comfort anymore, they bring clutter. I once opened a closet in my house and found boxes I hadn't touched in over a decade. Old papers, unused tools, clothes that no longer fit. I had held onto them because of some deep-seated belief that I might need them someday. But someday never came, and all they did was take up space, not just in my home, but in my mind. Letting go of things isn't just about clearing space, it's about making room for peace. Less clutter means fewer things to clean, organize, and worry about. It means walking into your home and feeling a sense of calm, not stress. It means keeping only what truly matters, the things that bring joy, serve a real purpose, or hold meaningful memories. I'm not saying throw everything away overnight, but take a moment to look around and ask yourself, does this item add to my life, or is it just taking up space? If it's the latter, maybe it's time to let it go. Pass down useful things to someone who needs them. Donate what no longer serves you. And remember, the real value in life isn't in the things we own, it's in the freedom we feel when we are no longer owned by them. Even after decluttering our homes and lightening our minds, one final fear remains, the biggest of them all, the future. We fear the unknown, the uncertainties, the things beyond our control. But if you've already let go of everything else, can you also let go of this fear and truly start living? 7. Stop worrying about the future. There's an old saying in many spiritual traditions. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. It's a truth that took me years to fully understand. When we're young, we spend so much time worrying about the future, our careers, our families, our finances, our health. We try to control every outcome, predict every challenge, prepare for every possibility. But the older we get, the more we realize how little control we actually have. In Buddhism, they teach the importance of mindfulness, living fully in the present moment, because the past is already gone and the future is not yet real. In Christianity, there's a verse that says, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself." Each day has enough trouble of its own. Every faith, in its own way, reminds us that life is happening now, not in some distant, uncertain future. I used to stay awake at night, replaying every possible "what if" scenario in my mind. What if my health declines? What if I run out of money? What if I become a burden to my family? But you know what I realized? None of that worrying ever changed a single thing. It only stole the peace of the present moment. I once knew an elderly man who spent his last years in fear of what might happen. He was financially stable, had a loving family, and was in relatively good health, yet every conversation revolved around his worries. He feared hospitals, he feared loneliness, he feared losing control. And because of that, he never truly enjoyed his life. He had everything he needed, but he was never at peace. Then I met another man, also in his later years, who had a completely different outlook. He, too, had seen loss and hardship, but he lived each day with gratitude. He sat outside in the mornings just to feel the sun on his face. He laughed easily, loved deeply, and never let the weight of "what if" steal his joy. I once asked him how he managed to stay so content, and he simply said, "Because I'm here now." And that's enough. The truth is, the future will come whether we worry about it or not. We can spend our days fearing what's ahead, or we can spend them appreciating what's right in front of us. The sound of the wind in the trees, the warmth of a cup of tea in our hands, the laughter of a grandchild. These are the moments that matter. So if you find yourself lost in thoughts of the future, take a deep breath. Remind yourself that you have survived every difficult moment life has thrown at you so far, and you will survive whatever comes next. But right now, in this moment, you are alive. And that is a gift worth cherishing. At the end of it all, life is not about how much you accumulate, whether it's approval, achievements, arguments, or possessions. It's about how much you're willing to release so that you can live lighter, freer, and with a heart full of peace. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing what truly deserves your energy. So today, I invite you to ask yourself, what's one thing you can start letting go of? Maybe it's the fear of what others think. Maybe it's the pressure to be perfect. Or maybe it's the endless worry about a future you can't control. Whatever it is, remind yourself that the weight you carry is a choice. And choosing peace will always be worth it. If this message resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Type 1 if you're ready to let go, or 0 if you feel stuck and need help figuring it out. Your thoughts matter, and I'd love to hear them. And if you found value in this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Every time you engage, it helps this community grow, and together, we can create a space where we lift each other up. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take a deep breath, let go of what no longer serves you, and embrace the freedom that awaits. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and live light.